Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive! This week, I continue my series on the history of Battletech by talking about the clan invasion. This is a literal changing of the game. What happens is new factions are introduced, new technologies, new types of mech designs are introduced, such as the versatile and changeable omni-mechs. But that's not all. It introduced the clans. And this era is generally one of the division areas of the Battletech fandom. There are fans who love the clan invasion. There are Battletech fans who wish it had never progressed past 3025. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy as I talk about the coming of the Warriors of Kerensky. It is 3049. Word is starting to kind of filter back to the inner sphere that something's going on with pirates. No one really knows what, but a number of mercenaries start going out, taking this as a great opportunity to do pirate hunting. And a unit called the Kellhounds, one of the prestigious, premier mercenary units. One of their lances is fighting some pirates on a small planet called the Rock. It's actually little more than a oversized asteroid. And in the middle of this fight, a number of mysterious mechs arrive on site. These mechs, they have firepower the likes of which no one has ever seen. And they cut through the pirates first, and then the forces of the Kellhounds. One of the Kellhound pilots, a individual named Phelan Kell, a direct descendant of the founders, Morgan and Patrick Kell, he's taken prisoner. And interesting stuff happens with him. But that stuff we'll get into later. You see, these mysterious mechs were forces of Clan Wolf. And this was the first notable encounter of Inner Sphere forces with the clans. And things were about to get much worse. Before we start talking about the clan invasion, I want you to take a look at or take a thought about the Inner Sphere. You have this essentially round area of space. You have borders, and most of the prestigious elite units are going to be put on the borders, facing their enemies. At this time, you have the Draconis Combine. You have, spanning both sides of it, the Federated Commonwealth, the joint nation created by the marriage of Melissa Steiner and Hans the Fox Davian. And then, in the bottom corner, you've got Merrick and Liao. And at that point, you've got, it's sort of like this. Davian forces on the Draconis March. You have between the Draconis Combine and the former Steiner space, a small new nation, the Free Razelhog Republic. Basically, one military district of the Draconis Combine declared itself independent, fought a war for that independence, and got recognized by the Federated Commonwealth, and the forces of Steiner kind of tended to back them up a bit, because having a buffer zone between Kurita and Steiner was a good thing. So, you had Steiner with its elite forces facing the Free Razelhogs, the Razelhogs with some forces facing Steiner, but their best and brightest facing Kurita. Marek had forces facing Steiner space and Capellan space, House Liao. Capellan Federation had its forces facing Davian space and Marek space. And, you have to look at this. You have your best forces on the hostile borders, on the potentially hostile borders. Towards the periphery edges, well, that's mostly low-end units, your green units, and they're mostly doing pirate hunting. Well, or it's where you put the heirs to your thrones, so that they're away from any actual danger as they're doing their whole, look at me, I'm a mech warrior bit. Well, yeah, that's a setup for disaster right there. Because coming out of the direction of Razelhog, Kurita, and Steiner came the clans. And they cut through the defensive forces like a hot knife through butter. You have to understand, the clans had certain distinctive advantages. First off, they were genetically engineered super soldiers. Their mech warriors have faster reactions. Their aerospace pilots can take better Gs, have faster reflexes. And their infantry are 8 feet tall in power armor that the Inner Sphere has not seen ever. Because the most the Star League had were what were called PAL suits, which are basically light exoskeletons that were environmentally sealed. And this is what came rolling in. On that level. Now then, their training, they were trained pretty much since birth to be able to be warriors. The Inner Sphere, hey, you had a childhood. You had a teenage years. It was pretty much like, well, let's face it, the Inner Sphere was pretty much like a modern professional army. You have a life before you joined the military. And you're joining the military either for patriotism or to get a better life, etc., etc. Or just because it's a good paycheck in some worlds. Now then, the Inner Sphere had backslid in technology thanks to Comstar. Well, the clans didn't. And they had scientists whose sole job was to better the tech for the warriors. Because the clan society, in and of itself, was built around the warrior caste was the pinnacle. And everything existed to support the warriors. So, the clans had PPCs that had longer range and hit harder. ER large lasers that hit harder and had longer range. Their pulse lasers were all longer range and did more damage. Their Gauss rifles and autocannons were lighter, so that they could fit them in more stuff. And the clans had something truly unique at the time. The Omni-Mech. The Omni-Mech was based on the principle of modular weapon systems. You could pull out a weapon system on an Omni-Mech and replace it with something else. Now, admittedly, there's also the fact most systems on an Omni-Mech, if they got damaged, it's just a matter of, oh, well, we're just going to pull that arm off, put in another arm for that mech type. We'll repair this arm later. Oh, we're just going to pull off that torso, replace it with another torso for that. Replace that leg, etc., etc. Omni-Mechs were designed to be totally modular. And from that, the clans were able to repair damage to their mechs quicker. But also, if they were on a planet and suddenly they realized that the planet had a lot of infantry fighting, the clans could just back up, replace the ER smalls on their mechs with flamers or machine guns or what have you. If they were fighting forces that had a lot of heavy mechs that could take a pounding, well, rearm with stuff that can do a lot of damage, like ER larges, large pulse lasers, that sort of thing. Oh, the enemy has a lot of light mechs. Well, light fast mechs? Well, let's just back up, put targeting computers and pulse lasers on. Or, oh, we're needing to go from fighting on open plains to fighting in a city? Well, let's back up, put jump jets on the mechs. And that's what the clans were doing with Omni-Mechs. That was the big thing. That's what clans could do with them. The Inner Sphere? First off, an Inner Sphere mech loses an arm, it's going to be in the shop for a good long time. A clan mech loses an arm? 15 minutes, they'll bolt on a new one. Inner Sphere mech has a weapon system blown up in the torso. It's going to be a day or two before it can get replaced. Clan mech? An hour. And most of that's pulling the armor off, pulling the armor plate off, unplugging the slots, pulling the weapon system out, slotting a new one in, plugging it in, hitting upload on the plug and play interface, getting it calibrated, slapping the armor back in place. It would probably be done while they were repairing the armor on that location anyway. And that was a huge advantage. So the clans slaughtered their way through the first wave. But the Inner Sphere reacted. And in the month between the end of the first wave and the start of the second, the Inner Sphere started moving forces around. Putting more veteran units. And even making arrangements between old enemies. That the clans were a greater threat than each other. So, let's kind of work together. And share intel. Share tech. And not have our best and brightest warriors looking across the battlefield at each other. And have them facing towards the clans. The third wave is when things started to change. Noticeably. In the third wave, the Inner Sphere had started to learn how to deal with the clans. See, the clans have a strict code of honor called Zelbriggen. And the Inner Sphere forces began learning how to use it. One planet that fell during the third wave actually defended itself with not military forces, but their all-star football team. They issued that as what they were defending with. The clans sent a football team of elementals. So the Inner Sphere kind of didn't stand a chance. But they acquitted themselves well enough to do what was described as a Hail Mary into a hook and ladder offense. And from that, the Inner Sphere was able to get 1 point, which meant they were taken as bondsmen by the Ghost Bears and got to teach the Simcoes American football. By the way, the reason why this world did this was because they were the only planet in the Inner Sphere that still played American-style football. So, they thought that there was no chance that the clans, who were mysterious invaders from beyond the periphery, would know American football. But the Ghost Bears were the one clan that still practiced American football. Because it was great calisthenics for their elementals and great tactics for their elementals. Yeah. But yes, that's the sort of thing that people were doing. They were looking for any advantage they had, challenging the clans and trying to win. Some cases, some worlds were kind of giving bad information in their counters, but ultimately it was the clan's whole honor system was starting to be used against them, helping stall the invasion. Now, back in the second wave, something happened. Something that had a massive ripple effect throughout the invasion. The Smoke Jaguars had taken the world of Edo and had actually captured Hohiro Kurita, the heir to the coordinatorship. They didn't know it at the time. Because, yeah, no one learned the lesson of Minoru Kurita way back, and the heirs for the Combine continued, just like the coordinators, to wear standard military uniforms with no distinguishing features. So that you wouldn't know you captured the heir to the Combine. And, well, the clans didn't know who they'd captured, and Yakuza on Planet, because they owed Theodore Kurita, the crown prince to the coordinatorship, because Takahashi Kurita is still alive at this point. Because they owed Theodore Kurita a favor for the ghost regiments, i.e. giving Yakuza a chance to fight honorably in mechs, they helped get Hohiro Kurita out. And when the Smoke Jaguars realized this, and realized that the capital city of Edo, Turtle Bay, was still in active rebellion, the Smoke Jaguars chose to do this little thing called an orbital bombardment, turning the city into a glassy crater. The response by Clan Wolf, the only Warden clan, Wardens are the ones who opposed the invasion, Crusaders are the ones who were pro-invasion, basically. The Khan of Clan Wolf made the decision that honor would demand that in all future engagements, he bid away, because the clans used a system of bidding. Basically think of it as name that tune, but with military units. I can take that planet with 5 mechs. I can take that planet with 4 mechs. I can take that planet with 1 mech and only half its weapons. Sir, take that planet. Yeah. But basically, Ulrich Kerensky decided, oh, and yes, that name probably sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yeah, we're getting there. Ulrich Kerensky made the decision that honor demanded he bid away his naval assets in all future engagements. Because the Warden clan was doing that, the other clans kind of couldn't let it be seen that they felt that they were weaker than the Warden clan. So, of course, they also started bidding away their naval forces. Yeah. Which is good, because the Unisphere didn't actually have naval forces at this time. So they were kind of overkill. But it's like, during the 4th wave of the invasion, 3 monumental events happened. First, the Battle of Twycross. On Twycross, the Inner-Sphere forces, led by Victor Davian, defeated the elite of the Jade Falcons, their most prestigious unit, the Falcon Guard. We're talking about essentially the color guard for an entire clan. And unlike in the US, they're not ceremonial color guard, they're the best. It was like a 90% blood named unit. And if you weren't blood named, you were still damn good. Yes, we'll be talking about that in setting when I start talking about the clans. So bear with me. It's going to be a bit before I get to that point. But on the plan of Walcott, the Combine and using the Genosha regiments engaged the Smoke Jaguars through cunning and manipulation in choosing the environment. A swamp that they put chaff in all the branches of the trees, use fast-moving hovercraft, etc. Combine won there. And then the Ilkhan, the leader of the clans, had wanted a grand kurultai, a big meeting of all the present Khans. And so he was going to hold it on the newly conquered world in the Free Ruzzlehog Republic of Rodstadt. Well, they were surprised by a Inner Sphere fleet. This fleet was actually the bodyguard for the elected prince of the Free Ruzzlehog Republic. And it was including the elite 1st Drakons Aerospace Regiment. This Aerospace Regiment fought to the death to give the Prince of the Free Ruzzlehog Republic a chance to get away. And in the course of the fighting, one of their fighters was damaged heavily. But it had enough maneuverability, enough thrust, even though it had no more weapons, that it could steer itself towards a warship. And it steered itself towards the bridge of the warship that the Ilkhan was on. This ship also happened to have Ulrich Kerensky on it, and Kerensky was saved by a person named Phelan Kell. You remember him from earlier. Well, he pulled Ulrich out, but wasn't able to get to the bridge again before it decompressed explosively to pull Leo Showers out. And so the Ilkhan died. And this was a massive thing. You see, what the clans had to do was they had to go back a ways towards the clan homeworlds. And they had to have a vote from all the blood-named warriors to who the new Ilkhan should be. And eventually that became Ulrich Kerensky, who was honor-bound to execute the war to the best of his ability. And he did. He also activated the reserve clans, the Steel Viper and the Nova Cats, assigning them to the Jade Falcons and Smoke Jaguars, respectively. This meant that he put 2 clans' enemies assisting them. This was a calculated insult, of course, because first off it said these clans need help, and second, it's you need help from your enemies, who are probably going to shoot you as readily as they're going to shoot an Inner Sphere warrior. And then he activated the Diamond Sharks as a reserve clan. And while this was going on, the inner sphere started actively trading information. And then they came and had a meeting in January 3051 on outreach with the Wolf's Dragoons, where it was revealed that the Wolf's Dragoons were sent in ahead of the clans 40 years prior to get information on how the Inner Sphere fought, their politics, all that stuff. And, well, they'd done their last supply run back in the 30s. They delivered their report then, and everything had changed, and they had decided to throw their lot in with the Inner Sphere. They gave certain people full clan omnimex, or refitted some warriors' mechs with clan tech weaponry. And they started giving out information on how the clans fought, who they were. It is at this point that it is revealed to the Inner Sphere for the first time that all those people going, "Is this our darkest hour? The descendants of Kerensky will return and save us." Nope! Not this time! Because you know who you're fighting? The descendants of Kerensky and his Exodus fleet. It was revealed at this time who the clans were to the Inner Sphere. But something else changed during this. Comstar, during the 5th and final wave, early in the 5th and final wave, made a decision. They were not going to be neutral anymore. And the 5th wave stops on a planet called Tukayid. So, basically, here's what happens. Comstar finally figures out the goal of the clans. That they're going for Earth. That they're going for Terra. And Comstar can't have that. Terra is theirs. They've had people in the clans learning their ways, learning about their culture. And so they make the decision to stop being neutral at this point. They start sharing everything that they know about the clans to the Inner Sphere. The politics and all that. And then they challenge the clans to a trial of possession for Terra. And they select a backwater agrarian world called Tukayid as the grounds for this battle. It was picked due to it being an agrarian world, so there had a low population, and also because it had a wide range of different terrain types. Because apparently most Inner Sphere worlds tend to be planets of hats. I mean, single climate worlds to one degree or another. But Tukayid was varied. And so the clans accept. Because, hey, if they can skip all this fighting their way through the forces of the Inner Sphere and then just figuring out who is the ill clan, the clan that gets to actually take possession of Terra, Well, that just makes it all the much better, because the clans abhor waste. And so they accept. And it's at this point that officially the strength of Comguard is revealed. The Comguard meet the clans with Star League mechs, including, in the hands of a few, the rare Royal battle mechs. The best of the best that the Star League had. And the clans face off. The Smoke Jaguars suffer horrific casualties on landing. Not because of the Comstar shooting them, but because many of the Smoke Jaguar warriors jumped out of their drop ships and waited as long as possible to turn on their jump jets to slow their descent to try and be the first on planet. So, yeah, the Jaguars took some massive hits right off the bat. The Jade Falcons had a newly rebuilt Falcon Guard commanded by a legend, Aiden Pride, the Jade Phoenix. And also helped by the only survivor of the original Falcon Guard, Joanna. Yeah. But the Falcons fought their way to one of their two objective cities. They took one and then had to withdraw. So the Comguard were gracious enough to declare that one a draw. The Ghost Bears took one of their two cities. Only Clan Wolf took both cities. And by that point, note that Clan Wolf was the last clan to land on planet, too. By the point that Clan Wolf had taken both its cities, they were able to look at the damage that the other clans had taken. And here's basically what was going on. Comguard would defeat forces, and then it would route the forces that it had used to defeat one group to reinforce others. So that as clan units were defeated, the forces facing all the other clan units were increasing. And by this point, by the point that the last of Clan Wolf's objectives had fallen, Ulrich Kerensky was able to look at the situation that the clans were facing. And every single one of them was outnumbered, outgunned, outclassed, because they were all heavily damaged, and there were still plenty of Comguard forces on planet. And it was at that point Ulrich Kerensky and Anastasius Vogt reached the agreement that the battle was over and that the clans had lost. What this meant was a 15-year peace. One generation of clan warriors would have to sit out the invasion of the Inner Sphere. The clans could not move past Tukiyid. Oh, they could go anywhere along the same line as Tukiyid. So there was still worlds falling, worlds getting attacked, etc., etc. But Tukiyid was as far as they could advance until the end of the treaty. Well, eventually the treaty has to come to an end. And the Inner Sphere would start preparing for that. And eventually, the Inner Sphere would make a simple decision. One clan had to die. Which one? Well, we will talk about that next week as I go into the treaty period and the twilight of the clans. So until then, I'd like you all to remember to have fun and keep gaming.